And hello, everybody. Welcome along. Cricket Badger podcast time. A few things to talk about today, and I'm pleased to say joined by Lucas, all the way from the other side of the world. Lucas, Australian Badger, and good to see you. How are you?
Yeah, good to see you too, James. It's been a while. I'm really good, thank you. Pleasure to be here, and let's get going.
Yeah, sure. I mean, basically, there's a couple of things I want to talk about. We want to talk about the obviously the England and Sri Lanka first test, and maybe the knock on into Lords for that as well. But also wanted to start off by talking about Graham Thorpe, because we've not done that on this podcast. I've tweeted about it and made my feelings on mental health known, because it's something that affected me about 20 years ago or so. Affected me quite a lot for about 18 months, and so I know what it's like to suffer from mental health. And I think some people who just think, oh, it's, you wake up and you feel a bit depressed. It's more than that, and it can completely cloud your existence and completely take over your life, and you feel like you're a burden on people. You feel like you're letting yourself down, you're letting other people down. On the occasions you go outside, it can feel like you are paranoid and everybody's looking at you, and kind of when they're not at all. And it can really completely take over your life. And so massive sympathy with Graham Thorpe. Obviously, make you rest in peace, and loads of love to his family and to everybody that knew him and counted him as a friend, because it's a horrible situation to be so desperately sad and down that you take your own life. And it's far too much of it in cricket. There's been books written about suicides in cricket. People either struggling actually when they were playing the game, or struggling with a transition from playing into retirement and being the former cricketer rather than the current cricketer, and the different dynamic in the life that brings. But I think it's I made the suggestion, Lucas, the other day on the Twitter feed. We've got obviously the Glenn McGrath test down under, where they all go pink. We have the Andrew Strauss Day at Lords, where they raise money for Ruth Strauss Foundation, and great cause there. Bob Willis obviously sadly died, prostate cancer.
Yeah.
His family and friends have set up a thing where at Edgbaston they raise money for prostate cancer. And I think this is a great opportunity for cricket. Obviously, once the dust has settled a little bit and the family have come to terms with it, and everybody's kind of gone through a grieving process. Not that you ever get over stuff like that, but when the Oval hold a test match, to have a Graham Thorpe Day where people obviously remember him as a great player, because he was somebody that I watched a lot, and I really liked watching him. There were two batters for England that I really loved watching. There was Robin Smith. He was forceful, had arms like tree trunks and square cuts and what have you. And then Graham Thorpe, because he was a fighter, he was a battler. He played some tremendous innings for England, often when England really needed needed him. And there was a lot of times in the 90s where England needed him. He very rarely let England down. He was tremendous. And I just loved the way he played the game. And, as a Surrey player, I'm a Yorkshire fan. I'm not necessarily attuned to liking Surrey players, but he was one of my favourites. So, I've got hugely fond memories, because it's funny the way people work, isn't it? Because, like when David Bowie died, I never met David Bowie. I loved his music, really liked him, and he played a big part in my life for at various stages, following his music. So I'd never met the guy. When he died, I felt like somebody in my family had died, because it felt quite close to me. And same thing happened with Graham Thorpe. When I found out that Graham Thorpe had sadly passed away, then I felt a bit of a kick in the guts, really, because he was somebody that actually meant something to me. Because we get quite close to our cricketers, not necessarily in proximity, but in the way that we regard them. And when Graham Thorpe passed away last week or the week before, probably now, it kind of hurt. It was something that I kind of was, and I took to Twitter and did quite a long tweet, and got probably one of the biggest reactions I've ever had, when I kind of talked about my own struggles with mental health in the early 2000s, and got a lot of people on DMs, and got a lot of messages from people saying, I struggle. And I think that's the thing, we kind of walk around life, and people put on that face, where the public face, where you want to make everybody else think that you're okay. And there's a lot of people out there that aren't. And I think it's something that we need to talk about a lot more and kind of put our arms around, metaphorically or physically, people and help them through some dark times. And not make it so that people can't feel they can't talk about it. You're not going to get ridiculed. You're not going to, we're going to help you. And to try and set up a situation where either with a Grownthorpe Day or whatever we can do, just raise a little bit more awareness, because there's so much talk about mental health in cricket. The tours are so long. We had Jonathan Trott, we had Marcus Trescothick. I'm sure there's plenty of other examples around the world with people that have struggled with mental health as cricketers, and that's at the very highest level. And it's not just, you don't have to be a test cricketer to suffer from mental health. You can suffer as a county player, as a state player in Australia, or you can suffer as a teammate at a local club in the third division of a nowhere league. And I think cricket has an opportunity and a bit of a duty to people that play it to look after them a little bit.
Well, first of all, deepest condolences to Grownthorpe's family and his friends. Terrible time. But you're absolutely right. There's a perception around the world where it comes to mental health that you've got something to be ashamed about, something that, is scary. Well, I'm sorry, you have nothing to be ashamed about. After all, we are human. We have feelings, and sometimes it can get the best of us, whether in a negative way, positive way, or whatnot. But you have nothing to be ashamed about. This, as you said, this isn't as talked about as much, and it wouldn't hurt, as you said, to have a day like that, to just say, you know what, we're human. We all suffer from it. I suffered from it when I was a 19-year-old. I don't want to go into too much detail about that, but I was a young bowler growing up through the grade system, and I put too much pressure on myself to play state cricket. And I left the game for 5 years, which, looking back now, is probably the biggest regret of my life. So I didn't want to know about it. I didn't watch it, didn't do anything. I was living with my parents at that time, and I still do. Explaining, having that conversation is hard. It's very hard. But no, as you said, no one's going to ridicule you. No one's going to, say, oh, well, harden up, such and such. Nothing to be ashamed about. And I wish back then I was pretty naive when it came to that stuff. As you mentioned, not many people wanted to talk about it. I was one of those. Didn't really explain it, my cricket club, because I was in a district grade cricket club at that time. I didn't even tell them that what was going on. I didn't answer the phone, didn't tell anybody. I'll say a little bit why, but I don't want, as I said, I don't want to go into too much detail, because it was pretty dark time. I just couldn't deal with the pressure, and I just put so much pressure on myself, because I was an 19-year-old, and not to pump myself up, I was playing in a World High League, and I thought I could play state cricket if I just did a little bit extra, did a little bit there more. Maybe I should have done that a little bit more. Maybe I should have done that a little bit more. And the end of just mental fatigue just took over. And like I said, I just didn't want to know about cricket. Luckily, it was just mental health. It wasn't anything like drinking, drugs, anything like that. Just mental health. So it can happen to, as you said, absolutely anybody. And I think a day is needed like that, because it is not talked about. So it is.
Sorry, Lucas, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but a lot of people got in touch with me, saying, "How did you get out of it?" And I think I don't feel in the position to be able to advise people, because I'm not a doctor.
No.
I'm not a mental health specialist by any means. I only know kind of my route through it, and having talked to a few other people, and obviously just yourself just then. It's everybody's different, I think, and everybody deals with things in different ways. And I think the easiest way of looking at it, and it's a little bit of a cliche, I know, because it's repeated a lot, but it's true. Sportsmen, everybody looks after their bodies, and their, if you got a knee injury, you go into the doctor. The head's just the same, and so much of sport is played in the head as well. Especially, if we're talking about cricketers, so much of the kind of the the value that somebody kind of brings to the cricket field is in that top 6 inches of the head, how the mind works and how you deal with pressure and how you cope with things and the choices you make as a sports person, effectively make you the player you are. So looking after that is crucial. One of the things I think I found, I was thinking about it this morning actually, because when something like Graham Thorpe happens, it does kind of trigger you a little bit to kind of go back to thinking about how you used to feel. And I think as a person myself, they put me on antidepressants. I hated them. It made me feel really weird, and I kind of came off them. I didn't like it. I felt artificial. So it basically, in the end, it was me just kind of realizing that I needed to do something and get out a bit more. And I think one of the things that actually made me feel a little bit better was that when things happen, you kind of learn to cope with stuff, and you find ways through stuff. So even now, sort of 20 plus years later, if I feel that cloud kind of descending over me, there's things I do to kind of like avoid just sitting in a corner for 18 months and not doing anything. And tackling, you get a bit more active and tackle the world a little bit more and kind of forget about it. But there's kind of little kind of coping mechanisms that you have. But one of the things I think with me, I think I was very much a people pleaser. I wanted everybody to like me. I wanted to try to be that person that made people happy and was, oh yeah, there goes a good old James kind of thing. And when you're feeling down, you don't feel like good old James. And also I think it kind of sounds maybe a bit harsh, but realizing that it didn't really matter if somebody likes me or not. It doesn't define you as a person if somebody doesn't like you. And obviously it's nice. It would be lovely if everybody in the world got along and everybody was in perfect harmony. But the world isn't like that. And if somebody doesn't like you, or if you don't get the desired reaction from somebody, it doesn't change who you are as a person. You can still be happy if if you don't get on with somebody. It's like a bit like relationships. If you don't click, there's no point in staying together. If you don't click as people, there's no point in staying together. And learning to kind of maybe thicker skin, or maybe whatever it was. Thinking, well, I don't need you to like me. I'm still James, and I'm all right. That was quite a thing for me as well. But you kind of ultimately just get on with it and you look forward. But I can totally understand why people find that very hard. But I think talking to people, I mean, this now with you is kind of almost like a little bit of therapy, because you're kind of talking about it and vocalizing something. Whoever it's to, possibly easier to talk to a complete stranger than a friend, because you don't want to let that stranger down, or let that stranger know too much. Let the friend know too much about you. Whereas a total stranger, it feels a bit more removed. But actually, just kind of vocalizing how you feel about things, and vocalizing how it makes you feel, and what impacts things are happening on you, and what your struggles are. Actually, hearing it out loud from your own voice into your own ears, you can then deal with it a little bit more. And like every problem, unless you actually realize and actually acknowledge there is an issue, you can't really do anything about it. And it's just exactly the same with mental health, I think. But
I completely agree. And like I said, if you are feeling that way, please get help. You have nothing to be ashamed about. When I was 16, 17, I left school, which I joke a lot. You know that I joke around a lot, and now people can probably say, "Oh, that makes sense why he's left school." But I left school because I wanted to go down a cricket path. And like I said, I was playing grade cricket. So grade cricket in Australia, grade 1, is equivalent to your county 2s, and then you got state. So literally, it's a level below state. And just, I remember one day I was in a game, I'm getting thrashed. It was a hot day. This was when I was a bowler, getting absolutely nothing. And I just clicked on my mind that I just didn't want to be there. And that was very strange to me, because everyone that knows me knows that cricket is my passion. I left school because of cricket. And just like that, just a snap of a finger, I just didn't want to hear about it. I didn't want to play. Now, I had the inkling in my mind that people are going to think you're a crybaby because you didn't have it your way. But it happened. You can't control that. People have to remember that you cannot control that. It happens. And I dealt with it speaking to my mum about it. I said, you know what, Mum, I'm sorry. She'll be watching this. She watches all my stuff. I just don't want to play quick enough. Yeah. You can add it on Twitter, by the way. I'm sorry, Mum. I just don't want to do this no more. I don't want to do this. And like I said, I didn't play for 6 years. I gave it up for 6 years. I haven't bowled. This is how it's got. Probably, I've moved on from it. Good, but I have not bowled in a game since I was 19 years of age.
Yeah.
I'm now 33. I used to be a first grade bowler, and now I'm a keeper. Now retired. But looking back at it, was I ashamed that I spoke up to somebody about it? Absolutely not, because it got through me. And everybody, as you said, everybody's different how they deal with things. Right? Not everyone's the same. And from my perspective, speaking to whether it's your mum, a parent, a neighbour, whatever, it helped me a lot because she understood that. She didn't really cue me. She understood that. Okay, what do you want to go next? What do you see yourself? What steps you want to take? And I said to her, I want to go down this path. Just want to give it up for a little while. A little while turned into 6 years. But talking helped me through that, as it did for you. Just talking to a voice. That's the main point, a voice. So again, nothing to be ashamed about.
It's not so much
talk to somebody. Yeah.
It's not so much what they say back either. You're not asking. You're not trying to get somebody to actually heal you or mend you or say something incredible to actually. Oh yeah, eureka moment. I'm going to be okay now. It's actually just hearing yourself speak, I think, and actually putting it out there. And being a bit more open with yourself and sticking yourself out there and actually saying, yeah, I am struggling. I am doing whatever. This is affecting me. And I think if I've heard somebody ask actually, if somebody came to me and started talking to me, what do I say to them? You don't have to say anything. Just basically all that person's looking for is your ears. Give them a nice smile. Sit them down, make sure they know that you actually care, but you basically just opening your ears so that they can speak to you. Cast no judgment. Don't be, don't kind of fire back. Well, why did you do that? That's stupid. Or snap out of it. It's you can just, what you're doing with yourself, you can snap out of this because it's not that easy. But just be there for somebody. The shoulder to cry on is the kind of the phrase, isn't it? But just be there so that they feel that they are not being judged, that they are not being, you're not kind of thinking bad things about them. Just kind of be there so that they can offload a little bit, and they know that you're there to be that kind of sounding board, because it really is just a case of hearing your own voice, and then everybody's got an understanding of who they are and what's wrong with them a little bit, and you can by kind of vocalizing it, you hear it, and you are probably the best person to then deal with it a little bit more yourself. But it's for some people it might be a very quick thing. Other people it probably takes a little bit longer, but there is light at the end of the tunnel, and there is a great future, and there are things to go and do and see and be happy about, and it might not feel like that now, but if you just persevere and you kind of you kind of stay with it, speak to people and look after yourself, then there is a great future for you. And there are cricket matches to watch, there are sunny places to go, and there are people to fall in love with and make friends with and all the rest of it, which you feel is probably a million miles away now, but that is there.
And once again, the key word is a voice to listen to. Again, like you said, you're not, you don't want to hear, oh, well, why are you feeling that way? Why, what, when? You just want to hear, I support it, okay? What can we do? How do we go from here? And basically, that's
what can I do to help you? Yeah, that's what you,
exactly.
Exactly right. It might be nothing, but just be there. Just be there. I mean, that segment of the show, Lucas, sorry, has lasted a lot longer than I anticipated, because I was really going to just say Graham Thorpe, very sad, thoughts with his family, but I think it's obviously a subject that means a lot to me and to you. So if cricket can, in some way, do a little bit more, I think, about mental health, it would be a very, very positive thing indeed. Was there anything else you wanted to say on that?
Yeah, no, again, I completely agree. And I have, because I'm now turned coach. But I used to still bowl in the nets, and I'm bowling in because I lost a yard because of my weight and whatnot, because I don't have a bowler's, and I took it very seriously. Like, I left school, I wanted to have the right body shape, whatnot. I wanted to be about tall, because I'm only 5'10". My main downfall was that I wanted to be a 140 bowler, and with the body frame that I built up, it was mentally, it was like you're mentally taxed before you got there, and when it didn't click, because some days I'd have good days on the field, result rides, and then I'll just get towed apart because I was just pushing my body, and then the mental demons started to come in. But now that, like I said, that was in the past. Again, I don't really like talking about it, but I thought today was a very appropriate conversation because it needed to happen. But
was there anything, Lucas, that your teammates or your coaches at the time could have done to make that easy for you? Was that something you had to kind of deal with?
No. See, I didn't tell my teammates. Now, again, everyone's different. My mum had to make that conversation on the phone. But what I will tell you is that they were very supportive. And 10 years later, when I returned, they actually opened me up with, well, all the people left. People move on to different clubs. But I still had some good friends there. I still wear that shirt and the cap, as I always do. So I have a great working relationship with some people down there. If you're watching, give me a grade 1 job, cricket coaching job. But no, look, they were very supportive. And again, it wasn't the, oh, why are you feeling this way? Or what are you doing? You're just having a silly moment. They were like, understandable. That, it gets the best of us. It happens. Nothing to be ashamed about. And when I returned to the club, I actually did speak about that to the board of director, who's actually not, sadly, passed away. And I was speaking to him, and I said, you know what? I the pressure got to me because I wasn't getting, in the right mental frame. I was getting mentally taxed before I even bowled. I remember one game I played leading up to that where I just snapped and didn't want to. I took 4 wickets that day, but something inside me, it just didn't feel right. And I said, that was the moment. I just did not feel right in my body. I felt like I was just mentally taxed before I even bowled. And he said, it happens to the best of us. But they were really, really supportive. Most of the players are gone and moved on. But no, they were really fantastic because I was technically with them. I have now retired. I haven't been at that club for a couple of years because I've gone down a coaching path. But no, they were absolutely fantastic. And they were so respectful and completely understood. So I'm forever in debt with that club. So if anyone's watching from there, thank you so much for your support, and really do appreciate it. Thank you.
Which club's that, Lucas? Name them.
That was NASA played for that club, the Adelaide Uni.
Okay.
He played for my good for, I get a lot of shit for this. Sorry. Ethan Bamber plays for that club as well. I've got a couple of good stories about Ethan. And there's another person called Keelan who plays at County Twos in Surrey. No, they're great. They're great people. Forever in their debt. I've probably moved on because I'm going down a coaching path. But no, it's the fraternity that is the best thing from it. They treat you like a family. And I think that's, if you're going through a hard time, like I said, I haven't experienced that for a long time now because I'm happy, got my degrees, whatnot. But it's good to have supporting cast around you, no matter who they are, as long as you've got somebody. That's a key word, somebody. Because if you have no one, then that can be a little bit, that can go horribly wrong. But again, like I said, it is absolutely nothing to be ashamed of. when talking
But
about this.
even if you think you've got nobody, there's somebody there that's
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So good luck to everybody out there. Whether it's never affected you or whether it's affecting you now, talk to people, look after yourselves, and things will be better. Things will get better.
Absolutely. And on a side note, if Ethan is watching, please improve your batting. Should not be getting out to me in the nets. On that note, if he's watching, because I'm no longer a 130 bowler. I'm now probably 100. He shouldn't be getting out to me. So and come on the show. I've actually been trying to get him on the show. He's a great person. Very shy, very soft spoken guy. But I remember when he came to the club, I didn't know who he was. I thought he was just some flog. And when I met him, I said to him, because I was a keeper back then, and I said to him, "Oh, do you mind giving me throwdowns? Just give me about 30, 40 throwdowns." To his credit, he said, "Absolutely." He didn't complain. And then my coach said, "What the hell are you doing? He's our new recruit. He's just got off the plane today." And I had him giving me throwdowns. And I thought, oh my God, he's our star recruit bowler. I thought, oh my God, well, you must think I'm an absolute twat. But he was so nice about it. So nice about it. So if Ethan is listening to that, thank you for being such a good sport for that. But he's a great guy, Ethan. I thought I'd share that.
Good stuff. Thank you for sharing what you shared as well. It's all positive. Let's move on. Shakib Palatan. We'll come to the England Sri Lanka first test in a sec. But Shakib, we've all seen videos, and if you haven't, they're all on YouTube of Shakib having tantrums and throwing stumps about. And I tweeted this morning that I just thought, this is the worst possible role model anybody in Bangladesh or beyond could have. He's an incredibly talented player, one of the best all-rounders the world's probably ever seen. But to have that inside you, and there was, if you haven't seen it today, he was bowling at Mohammad Rizwan, wasn't he? And I think Rizwan just pulled away or something because he wasn't quite ready. And Shakib, as he kind of came to his bowling action, was kind of like this, and he basically just kind of went threw the ball at him. Wasn't, and there was thought in that. That wasn't just something that he did. That was something that was calculated. And I just looked at that and just thought, what on earth? How can there's no justification to that? It's just an awful thing to do. And I think somebody said to me on one of our WhatsApp groups that he's done nothing that a lot of other people haven't done. But my reply was that he may have done some stuff that other people have done, but they've only done one of the things. He's done them all. He's kind of collected the full set almost. And I don't know what you think, but I just thought that was terrible. What I saw this morning.
Rizwan took that extremely well. To credit to Rizwan, he could have reacted to that. He kept his cool. This is going to go one or two ways. One, throwing the stumps near the umpire, he's a repeat offender of this stuff. But it's going to go one or two ways. He's going to do something silly to the wrong person, and that wrong person's going to react. Have a look at the night. We'll go back in the 90s. Imagine if you did that to David Boom. If you did that to Rod Marsh or Dennis Lilly. I think if they're holding a bat, I know where they'll put that. But I'm surprised that he's the only one from Bangladesh that does this, because as you said, like, this is leading such a bad example. Young cricketers, young people, kids are watching him throughout the years. He's a tremendous bowler, tremendous all-rounder. I want to be just like him. I'm surprised there's no one that's watching his attitude, his on-field attitude, that no one else in Bangladesh is doing that. That is a miracle within itself. That no one's copying that act.
I could forgive him if it was a one-off. Yeah. And you just think, he's just had a kind of brain fog freeze. He's fired up. He's made a mistake. But this is something he does a lot. Yeah. I just think it's awful.
is an absolute. I don't want to swear on it, but he's an absolute idiot. And I cannot believe how the ICC are letting him get away with this.
Don't you think it's a stature thing? That, if it was somebody green behind the ears that was playing only his second test match and stuff, he'd probably get banned for a year. But certainly get a massive fine. But because it's Shakib Al Hassan, who is the biggest name in Bangladesh cricket, it's almost we can't do it to Shakib.
Without a doubt, his name is protecting him, because we would have seen when he in that 2020 match where he picked up the stumps and threw it near the umpire. I think he only got a slap on the wrist. I think he only missed like 3 white ball games. So the ICC are letting this in the way. They're not only letting him do it, but they're not condoning it. The thing is, it's acceptable.
Yeah.
Because they're not suspending him. Why aren't you suspend? The question is, why aren't you suspending him?
If you've got an issue with somebody, there's ways of actually approaching that issue. If you've got an issue with an umpire, you can make a complaint, and there's mechanisms to make complaints, etc. You don't hurl things at people. It's like a toddler in the playground, the way he acts sometimes, and he's, he just goes off on one. But I just thought I wanted to talk about that because I wanted to get that off my chest, really, because I just think it's terrible the way he behaves at times.
But at the same time, now I know the ICC recently have introduced like a red card situation. I don't think it's a red card, but they can send off a bowler or send off a player. Why didn't Richard Ketterborough send him off? Now, Richard Ketterborough was the umpire in question, very experienced umpire. That is ridiculous what he did. And like I said, there are other batsmen that could have handled that differently with different tempers. Rizwan, gentlemen.
The trouble is as well, Lucas, there'll be a day where he throws something at somebody and they'll turn around and smack him in the face, and it'll be them that get banned for hitting him. I just wanted to raise that. We'll move on. But Shakib Al Hassan, I thought
if you got to stop, that shit. That's just that you're a role model. At the end of the day, you should be setting an example. And like I said, thank God there's no other cricketers in Bangladesh that have seen that behaviour and not doing it. That's a miracle within itself. So it tells me that the rest of the team actually has brains and know what's right and wrong and how to handle themselves, but this guy doesn't.
We'll move on after this very short advert for Manscaped.com, who are our sponsors of the Cricket Badger podcast. We'll come back and we'll talk about all things England, Sri Lanka, and Old Trafford.
Forever you and me, right by my side, where you ought to be. Let me hear you now.
Manscaped.com. Thank you very much indeed for their support of the Late Tea Time podcast. That's the golf one I did. Cricket Badger podcast as well. Thank you very much. Quote Badger, and you'll get 20% off, and you get free shipping. Anyway, England against Sri Lanka. We've had the first test, Lucas, at Old Trafford. Ollie Pope stepping into the breach with Ben Stokes' injury. The team pretty well. He's obviously got a lot of people who are probably putting their thoughts into his head, or their thoughts into his head. Ben Stokes was obviously at the ground as well, so captain almost from the balcony maybe at times. But I thought first thing I thought was that Sri Lanka were 6 for 3 in the first innings, 1 for 2 in the second. Did blimmin' well to actually stretch it as far as they did. I thought there was a lot of fight, and Kamindu Mendis looks an absolute gem. Left-handed bats. How a county has not recognised his worth and tempted him to counter cricket, I don't know, because he's got a first-class record. It was about 45 matches, averaging well in excess of 60. And he's played now 4 test matches and averages not somewhere close to 100. Scored runs in every test he's played so far. Looked really good. But I thought, when they were 6 for 3 on the first day, Lucas, I was thinking, oh no, this is going to be one of those tests that's over in a day and a half. Sri Lanka just haven't rocked up. They'd struggled in their first match against England Lions. Bowled for 139 in the first innings of that, and you're thinking, "Oh, this is going to be a short series." But they showed a bit of gumption, a bit of fight, and they came back at England, which was good.
Yeah, you weren't the only one. when they were 6 for 3, I thought, oh well, gee, will they even get past 50? It was looking that bad at one point. Horrible. The top order, their footwork didn't go anywhere when playing their shots. They wanted. They were playing. They had a white ball series against India. Now I know not all their players were playing that. That's fine, but it felt like they were playing away from their body, white ball cricket shots. Not going to work in England against the Duke's ball. Never going to work. And I thought, yeah, great. Another 2-day, 3-day test. Fantastic. Why don't we just start the Ashes right now and be done with it? But as you said, Mendis, I thought we had a really good test match. The only shining light, along with.
You don't want to start the Ashes just now. you get thumped.
Oh, really? Oh, all right, okay. Well, from what I've seen in test matches around the world, I think I'd want the Ashes this week. But no, I thought, look, 2-3 day test, but no, Mendis was really good. Angelo Matthews' second innings was really, really good, but they just wanted bat on ball too early. They were competitive. It wasn't that one-sided. When you look at the way England chased, if they would have got Joe Root out early, that would have been really interesting. I think they're probably one Joe Root wicket away from making it really, really interesting. They were competitive.
Sorry, I love the way Kamindu Mendis played, by the way. I thought just not really well organised. He just knew exactly what he was doing. He played some beautiful cover drives. He quite a small fella, so the short ball was something he seemed to latch onto very quickly. Some lovely cut shots he played too, and just looks like he knows his game inside out and looks completely confident in kind of implementing his plans. Looking forward to seeing more of him as we go to Lords and the Oval, because I'm certainly not a blinkered England fan, as you know. I like watching cricket which is competitive. If England end up winning it, then I'm happy with that. But it's nice to see players from the opposition sides showing you what they can do. And Kamindu Mendis, I thought he was tremendous. The other person who has really impressed me, Lucas, over this summer, and I hadn't seen too much of him, I have to admit, only on the feeds that you get from the county games and the occasional clips on Twitter, was Jamie Smith. And when he was first picked at the head of the West Indies series, and he was picked as a wicketkeeper bat, I was a bit surprised, I have to say, because I wasn't surprised they picked him, because he's been somebody that's come through the under-19s into the Lions and has been well thought of for a long time. I know that much, and has obviously scored a lot of runs for Surrey. But I was surprised they gave him the gloves, because there was Ollie Robinson and a few others that were maybe in the hunt for the keeping gloves, and obviously Ben Foakes and potentially even Johnny Bairstow. But he's come in and he has been probably. Gus Atkinson obviously took a hatful of wickets and continues to do so. But the two Surrey lads, Atkinson and Smith, they've come into this England team and they look like they've played 50 tests. You wouldn't know they were newbies in this team. Jamie Smith has scored runs in every test he's played, kept really nicely. He had a missed stumping, I think, in the test against Sri Lanka, but it was a tough one. And what I liked about him in reaction to that was he didn't look as if he was, I've just missed a stumping, I'm going to mope and cry and let it affect me. Shared a joke with Joe Root at first slip and he just got on with it and took the next ball cleanly. And he's really impressed me, a lot. And looks born to it, looks absolutely to the manner born in an England Test shirt. Have you? I take it you've been watching some of it, and you're a keeper as well. So have you been impressed with his keeper?
Look, everyone misses stumpings or drops a catch. That's fine, but it's how you react after that was very impressive. We just talked about Shakib and his expressions. Well, this guy's cool as a cucumber, even when he made that 100. Very calm, didn't really go over top. I was really impressed with his temperament, because keeping, it's one of those things where you don't get credit, but if you miss something, you get severely bashed and beat up, and everyone has a go at you about it, especially a bowler. But his temperament really, really impressed me. And as you said, if you were new to Test cricket, and you looked at this guy playing, how his temperament was, as you said, you think he's played 50, 100 tests, veteran of the team, absolute cool cat. So really impressed. As I said, he did did miss a couple of things, but it's also his first Test match, I believe. So those things happen. It's what you deal with that. It's what you do after that. Really, really impressed me. And he looks a hell of a player. He looks like he can be there for next 10 years.
Absolutely,
so,
absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, he played the 3 matches against West Indies and did well, and has obviously taken that form. I mean, he's man of the match in the first Test at Old Trafford against Sri Lanka. And as you said, just looks absolutely born to it. And I was equally impressed with his 39 in the second innings. It wasn't as eye-catching, obviously, in terms of the scorecard as his his century in the first innings, his first 100. But to come in when it was maybe looking a little bit dicey, not awful, but he if he'd got out quickly with England maybe with one less batter in the team, than they've had in recent times. Obviously, with Ben Stokes coming out, they avoided the temptation of putting Jordan Cox in there to shore up the batting, and they went with lobster pots, pots instead. So the tail was a little bit longer than it usually was. So there's a little bit of pressure with him being boosted up to number 6 in the order to come in and keep Joe Root company. And then just did a little phase, just came in, batted, got 39, walked off with England on the verge of victory. Absolutely fantastic. Yeah, only 24 years old. So he's had 4 Test matches now. He's played 6 innings in those 4 tests, 1 century, 5 of the 50s. 2 of the 50s. So 3 in half of his innings played so far. He's got past 50. He obviously got 39 in the second innings, which wasn't too far away either. Just looks absolutely made for Test cricket. I've been, I don't think I've been as impressed by 2 newcomers. I'll include Gus Atkinson. There's 3 newcomers into a Test series, as I have been with Jamie Smith coming in and keeping, Gus Atkinson coming in, making his debut, and then taking loads of wickets. And Kamindu Mendis, first time I've seen him in his 4th Test match, comes in, looks like he's absolutely born for Test cricket as well. There's like new names cropping up on the scene, and it's good to see.
And again, with him, he played 2 innings too differently. So the first innings, a bit of baseball, boundary hitting, stroke play. Second innings was calm it down a bit. That's extremely hard to do when you're brought into a system that plays a certain way. Now, I'll take out Joe Root because Joe Root's probably an exception to this. But to play one way in 1 innings and then go out and play a completely calm, sensible, as you said, you feel like he's played 50 tests. That was the word's mature. That was a mature innings. Again, his composure was world class there. And that's very hard to do when you've been told to play a certain way, you're around a system that plays a certain way. And what he did in the first innings to calm that right back in your I said debut, sorry, in your 4th Test match under, as you said, Dicey, they didn't have all that away England in that innings. To come into that situation, to tone it back a bit, where he could have lost his head, where he could have said, you know what, I'm just going to hit my way out of here. That's the most impressive thing about this guy. His composure is world class. His temperament is world class.
Yeah.
And when you can control your temperament in your 4th Test match, I look at a player like that and think, well, you're gonna be around for a while, a long, long time. If you keep that up, with that attitude as well. So I was really impressed with his attitude, his composure. As we talked about, his mental play. That was because Test cricket challenges you physically, challenges you emotionally and mentally, and that was a mental situation for that. And he was very strong in that situation. So
with the bat,
he was brilliant.
He's got all the gears. He can play that more dogged innings. He's got, if he's batting with the tail, he can open his shoulders. He's hit some massive 6s. In the last 4 tests as well. So, he's got everything, a little bit of everything, Jamie Smith. So really pleased to see him in this England side. Great selection, as was Shoaib Bashir as well. There's plenty of times critical of selections and critical of ECB and stuff, but I think they've got Shoaib Bashir, Gus Atkinson and Jamie Smith absolutely bang on. So looking forward to see them playing a lot more Test matches over the next decade. Moving on to Joe Root, I did a tweet last night and made the mistake of entering into a little bit of a communication with a guy that just turned out to be an absolute idiot, but and kind of in a nasty way as well. But the kind of the debate was worth having, because it's a lot of people having a say on it on Twitter. But he suggested that Joe Root's a muppet. If he was playing in the 1990s England team against some of the bowlers around in the 1990s, he'd be struggling to average 30. To which my response was, he's a class act. He'd get runs in any era. And I think there's just certain batters who, I mean, I also don't think it's an easier time now. You might not have a Glenn McGrath or somebody like that. And obviously Jimmy Anderson and Stuart Broad have retired, and Joe Root wouldn't have faced them anyway. But Pat Cummins isn't too bad. Hazel's not bad. Stark's all right. Jasprit Bumrah's not too shabby. Trent Bolt's a decent bowler. The West Indies might not have quite the 4 quicks they used to have, but they've still got decent enough players. So in South Africa have got some decent players as well. Henrik Nortje, I don't think I want to face him in gloomy lights at the end of a day's play. So I also think, going back to kind of mentality of things, I think it's harder work playing cricket. The treadmill of international cricket now, as opposed to even as recently as the 90s, is pretty tough. You're on that treadmill, and there's very few chances to jump off it and spend time with the family and have a bit of a breather. So for me, Lucas, Joe Root is a class act. Certainly, the best player I've seen in my lifetime, and I'm older than you. And I just think he's, and I'm a bit biased because I've known him since he was quite young, but he's a great player. He's got all the time in the world, and what I love about him is not so much the expansive cover drives and all the drives down the ground and everything else, and runs it down to third man at will, but the ability to go in quite tough conditions, in pretty much any kind of conditions, and rotate the strike. There's very few times that he just kind of soaks up a load of dot balls. In Bazball time, when England are clicking on at 5 or 6 and over and beyond, Joe Root's able to keep up with that purely by just nudging it into a gap. You might be facing a Nathan Lyon on a Turner or something, but he finds a way just to stroke it into a little gap on the leg side and get himself down the other end, keep the scoreboard ticking, keep his strike rate high. For me, he's England's best player. He's gonna waltz past Alistair Cook in maybe even this series, certainly in the winter. And then he's even got the potential to get to Sachin Tendulkar. If he plays for another 5 years, he could quite easily catch Sachin with the amount of tests that England play. So I don't think there's even a debate here. I don't even know why I'm asking you, Lucas, because for you, Lucas, and for Australians, he's the prize wicket, isn't he?
Well, he's the number one threat. It was very kind of you to mention our test attack, James, just then, in such a nice, pleasant way. It almost felt like that you wanted them to play for England. That's what I got out of that. But no, Joe, look,
I'll take a couple of them.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, you can't have them, James. That's good. They're ours. So look, I know I've joked a little bit about Joe Root. He's, as you said, he's going to score runs in any era, whether it's 90s, 80s, this era, early 2000s, any era. Now I know I joked that. I think the one blemish on his career is that 100 in Australia. Now let's have a look at Steve Smith. Let's look at Ricky Ponting. Let's have a look at Sachin Tendulkar. Now Ricky Ponting was one of my huge, despite me being a bowler, I actually wanted to bat like Ricky Ponting, and then I ended up batting worse than Glenn McGrath. No sledge on pitch there, but it was true. I wanted to be like Ricky Ponting. So Ricky Ponting, in my opinion, is the best that I've seen, because I actually used to go to Adelaide Oval, still do games, watch him play. Seen some amazing innings of him at Adelaide Oval. That famous Adelaide Oval test in the Ashes, James, you know which one I'm going here? Where we won on day 5. Yeah. I was lovely. I actually went on day 5 on that as a kid. Should have been in school, but didn't. But Ricky Ponting's the best I've seen. But can you imagine these? My point is the players I just mentioned, Smith, Ponting, Tendulkar, if they didn't have 100 in England, I think that's what Joe Root needs, is that 100 in Australia. So you know what? Now his average in Australia isn't terrible, still pretty good. But I think that's one little asterisk in his career that I think he needs. Well, he doesn't need it, but I think he wants it. He wants it. 100 in Australia. I've now cemented.
I would imagine he's more than aware of that. And 18 months away.
Yeah.
I mean, he may have, if he has got some longevity, because he could easily play into 40. There may be two more Ashes tours for him, but certainly I think in 18 months' time he'll be wanting to notch at least one big score in Australia. And then, as you say, that is something missing from his CV. But there's very little else missing.
Yeah, I think if our attack has anything to do with it, he won't get to Tendulkar's stats. But respectfully, I think he'll get a good run in. I think he'll go pretty close. Because he doesn't play much. He doesn't play much white ball.
No. Somebody made the point, Lucas, that Virat Kohli doesn't have to play against the Indian attack, and a Steve Smith or a Ricky Ponting doesn't have to play against the Australian attack. So. That's probably an advantage. But having said that, Joe Root hasn't had to face Jimmy Anderson or Stuart Broad, has he? But there are swings and roundabouts. But whereas Brian Lara or somebody has to face all three of those nations in terms of attacks. But I mean, he's scooting up the charts pretty swiftly. I think about 7th now on the all-time run scorers charts now, Joe Root. So, and he's got is it Sangakkara next in his sights. And then Alistair Cook, and then he'll be the leading English batter of all time. And as I say, about 2,000 runs or so behind Tendulkar, which it isn't insurmountable by any means. Maybe 3,000. I probably need to check that, but he's within reach anyway.
Yeah, as painful as this to say for me, I don't think he gets the amount of respect he does compared to a Steve Smith, compared to a Virat Kohli. I think he goes under the radar. Now,
I'll tell you why, because you don't notice him going about his business. We say a lot on commentary when Joe Root's playing for England that he comes in, he's busy, he knocks it around, he maybe hits occasional 4, but he's nudging it into gaps, and he's very quick between the wickets, makes 1s into 2s down to third man, etc. And before you know it, he's 33 off 38 balls, but you've hardly noticed him get there. Whereas when you see a Steve Smith or a Virat Kohli or some of the more, Virat Kohli's a little bit more imposing at the crease. Joe Root's always been somebody that looks like a choir boy, but this playing a man's game. He looks like he's playing a level. He might have got a bit of facial hair now, but it doesn't underline the fact that he still looks younger than he was when I first met him. He was what would he have been, kind of 16 or something like that, or maybe 17, and he looked about 11, honestly. And he's kept those youthful looks. So there are reasons, I think, that people maybe just kind of brush him off, that he's still a youngster coming through, where he's nothing like that anymore. And whereas Ricky Ponting was a little bit more imposing at the crease, Virat Kohli has been, Steve Smith is. So you maybe remember a few more of their shots, whereas Joe Root just gets on with it. Yeah, no, that I completely agree. I think the right word is flair. They have more flair. You know that they're out there, as you said, compared to Root, just goes about his business. He doesn't, just pushes it around, as you said, compared to a Ponting that's quite prolific. Steve Smith prolific, making all those shots. Virat Kohli, flamboyant, flair. Viv Richards had the same trait. So you knew when he was out there. Viv Richards had more flair than anybody. He was a flair man. Exactly. Yeah. Same with Tendulkar. They all had that flair and glow. But going back to Root, I think he'll get top 2. I think that Ashes series could probably determine how he gets close to that. Now, hundreds aside, he does have a very good average in Australia. Hundreds aside. So that could well depend on that tour. Now, as you said, he can go on for another 4 or 5 years because he actually doesn't play much white ball for England. I don't think he plays hardly ever. I mean, the way they look after themselves these days, the nutrition and the diet, and the way they keep themselves fit. He's 33 now, I think. He could go on until he's 40. I mean, there's been players in the past. Alex Stewart kept himself fit, and he played till he was 40. Graham Gooch played till he was 40. There's Australians that have done the same. So, there's no reason. It's all about whether he wants to. Ultimately with Joe Root, he doesn't need to financially. I'm sure he's got a very nice bank account. I'm sure he's sorted out, so he doesn't need the money. But the one thing with Joe Root, having known him a little bit and seen his desire, he is a cricket badger. He loves the game.
Yeah.
You know, you get certain players who go home and they'll watch everything else but cricket, but Root's always liked cricket. And I don't think he'd want to. I think he'll want to rinse every appearance out of his game that he can, because you're a long time retired, you never get it back. And I think despite the fact he's got a young family, I think he'll want to try and play as long as he can. So every reason to think he can get right to the top of the tree. Anyway, just a little bit of a roundup then. Mark Wood's injured, so they're going to be looking for a replacement for him. So I've not actually seen this officially, but somebody put on Twitter that Chris Woakes potentially out as well. But England have lost a few. Zach Crawley, who you'll know on this podcast, there were many times I was calling for him to be axed. It's amazing now how things change, because he's worked on his game. He's got himself a little bit more organised, and now he's somebody that I'm missing at the top of the order for England, because he's scored a lot of runs in the last 18 months. He's been, he's suddenly kind of worked out Test cricket and got himself sorted, but he's missing the series. So Dan Lawrence gets that opportunity at the top of the order to just remind people that he can play Test cricket. Ollie Pope, as I say, captaining, and then they'll be looking for maybe some different bowlers. Probably Ollie Stone coming in, who's been so dogged by injury. It's great to see him back playing. Hopefully he can keep himself in one piece, because what England are trying to do, Lucas, that was a very long way of running through the team. But my question at the end of it is, what England are trying to do is get the fast bowlers, get your Mark Woods, get your Ollie Stones, Josh Tong, who's out injured at the moment but will come back, to build that little kind of gaggle of maybe 5 or 6. Obviously, Gus Atkinson's come in. He might not be a big, tall fella, but he's nippy, to try and get that gaggle of fast bowlers who can then win the Ashes in 18 months' time. Is any of those that you would fear?
Well, that's why I said I wish the Ashes started this year, James, with all your players injured. Look,
there's a few, yeah.
Yeah. I think England, as an Australian, as if I'm going to tell you what I think's best to get out of Australia. But no, in all seriousness,
I hate to break it to you, Lucas, but your words mean nothing to the series.
No, listen, I think the last 2 tours, picking a bowler that's 3 bunch of bowlers that bowls 130, 80 miles per hour, however you want to see the system, that doesn't work. You need raw pace, especially on these pitches. Now look at the way Australia have lost their series. Let's go back to South Africa. 4 or 5 years ago, they had Rabada bowling I know he doesn't bowl that anymore, but he bowled 140 plus, absolute heat, destroyed the Australians. Jasprit Bumrah has been a pain in the Australian side. 2 tours bowling that 140 plus. Oh, you need a 140 plus bowler. Mark Wood was their best bowler in that Ashes series. Well, guess what he bowls? There you go. Yeah. So, but having said that, you don't want to have 5 bowlers that bowl 140. You need, I'd say, probably 2 bowlers. Find 2 bowlers that can bowl that 140. Penetration is the key. Penetration. You need to penetrate those hard pitches. Now, there is a rumor going around that the Indian series will be green tops, because the last 2 times we've played India, we've given them hard wickets, and we might as well be playing in India. So there are rumours that they're going to be a little bit more bowling friendly, but if not, you still need to penetrate those pitches. Now, Neil Wagner was not a 140-50 bowler, but he got a lot of penetration. Now, Tim Bresnan, when he won that series in Australia, now he didn't bowl that quick, but he got penetration. He bowled a heavy ball. Yeah. Yeah. That's what you mainly need, is penetration. Now, bowling Broad, bowling Anderson, bowling Woakes, they have no penetration. They are some of the greatest swing bowlers, greatest bowlers ever in the history of the game, more Broad and Anderson, but they don't penetrate. Anderson was very effective in Adelaide because of the pink ball with the swing, but you need penetration. That's what really damages you in Australia. Now, Australia have that. They've got that. They've got 4 bowlers that can do that. Hazelwood, they've got Stark, they've got Cummins. Again, they don't bowl 150. Even Stark these days, he doesn't bowl 150 no more. He's about mid 140s. That's still pretty quick, but he's penetrating. They're all penetrating bowlers. So if I was England, I'll definitely Archer. I don't know what's going on with him. Mark Wood, a must. I did like the look of Ollie Stone when he was playing. I looked at him and think, oh, he can do some damage. And one swing bowler like a Potts, just a bit of variety. I think.
I
also
think Potts,
the big.
I don't. Been a bit disappointed with Potts actually in this last test. I mean, Atkinson's making a name for himself. He'll go.
Yeah, he's
yeah. I'll tell you, I felt a bit sorry for Dylan Pennington as well. Dylan Pennington was called up at the start of the West Indies tour, and he didn't play in those three. And obviously with the injuries around, and then he would have been, to shoe into play in at least the next test. And obviously he's gone down with a hamstring injury, so that's a shame. Josh Tong's out with a pectoral injury. As you said, they're going down like flies. But if they can, what they need to do is I've got a list here: Archer, Stone, Ward, Tong, Atkinson, Pennington. If they can at least ensure that 4 of those are fighting fit and on the plane, then England have got some weapons there to fire at Australia. Anything you want to say before we round off today?
Yeah, just to also, I think also you need a spin bowler. Now, Graham Swan, when they won that series in Australia, he didn't. He didn't take that many wickets. But what he did, and if you can't take wickets in Australia as a spin bowler, the next best thing is contain. And I think he did that really well. Jadeja on previous tours has done that really well. So that's also a big part of beating Australia. You need a spinner that can very least contain. But no, sorry, what was your question again, James? Sorry.
I was kind of rounding off and seeing if there's anything you want to say goodbye. But Shoaib Bashir's the man. They brought him in for that Indian tour. He's still only 20, so he's got a huge potential. He's not got anywhere near his ceiling, I don't think, just yet, but he's bowling well. So I think he will be on that plane to Australia, all being well.
My final thoughts before you wrap up the show. I'm a little bit concerned with Test cricket around the world. Now, there's been a couple of series around the world, as we mentioned, Pakistan versus Bangladesh.
Oh, you're going to bring up a subject now that's going to need 50 minutes of chatting about, aren't you? One final word doesn't mean open up the biggest subject.
I'll make it quick. Now the South Africa with West Indies, the attitude. I'll wrap this up real quick. It's the attitude of other nations outside of England, India, Australia. Now, I get financially, I get all that. I don't want to go on a 40-minute rant, but there just needs to be. All I want to see is a care factor, James. Yeah. Now, West Indies played South Africa in that Test series. They booked a Test series in the middle of a hurricane season. Okay, Pakistan versus Bangladesh. Again, same old pitches. They got a result. Fantastic. Sri Lanka in England. Again, it looked like Sri Lanka didn't really care. Did show something at the end. I'm just really concerned about these lower-ranked nations, how their attitude is towards Test cricket, and I'll leave it at that.
I think that's really unfair on Sri Lanka and West Indies in England. I think they care. Sri Lanka care.
Well, when you see 6 for 3, and when you see the approach they take,
they don't care. They've just been bowled out. It doesn't mean they don't care.
Well, their preparation was a white ball series against India. So that tells me their priorities weren't there. Or West Indies booking a Test series in the middle of a hurricane season, priorities weren't there.
I've heard a couple of former Sri Lankan players say that Sri Lanka are really trying to prioritise Test cricket. Nobody wants to play them because you need an opposition. That's the thing. And if nobody wants to tour you, or if there aren't a queue of people who are wanting to host you because they see more riches in hosting in India or in Australia or in England, then Sri Lanka are kind of at the back of the queue waiting for the scraps. I mean, Sri Lanka are making up for it a little bit over the next 6 months. I think they're playing New Zealand and South Africa, then New Zealand again. So they're playing more, but no more than the 2-match series, amongst that. So this 3-match series in England is quite a long one for Sri Lanka. But I don't think they don't care. They want to prioritise Test cricket. They're just not playing much of it.
It's funny you mentioning they want to play more Test matches because we are playing Sri Lanka in next February in a Test tour. So we'll maybe I'm being harsh, but I'll wait till that series and the 2 next Test matches to see if I want to reevaluate what I've said. But the signs are just not looking good for me. And that's not just on Sri Lanka. I'm not picking on them. I'm not picking on West Indies. I just think Australia, India, and England are just in a completely different league when it comes to attitude towards Test cricket compared to other nations. I think that's very obvious to see.
I think Australia, England, and India are, but everybody wants to play them because of the money. So they can basically pick and choose who and when they play, which is an advantage, a massive advantage.
Yeah.
And I think all three of those countries, certainly including Australia, who threatened to tour some countries and then suddenly pull out at the last minute because they can't be bothered, which is massive. They need to actually pay attention to these smaller countries, because if you don't, they're going to disappear, and we're going to end up with England playing Australia, Australia playing India, and India playing England as a round robin, as all we have left of Test cricket. We need to keep the rest of the world happy.
Yeah. As much as we love the Ashes, we don't want to see that every year. As much as we love playing India, as England love playing India, we don't want to see that every year. That would devalue.
One of the problems, Lucas, is something we've done on this podcast. Is that we've talked about? I mean, I know it's because I'm English and you're Australian, so there is a reason. But we've talked a lot about the Ashes on a podcast where we've billed it as England versus Sri Lanka. We need to be talking more about Sri Lankan cricket, talking about West Indies cricket, talking about Pakistan cricket, talking about Zimbabwe, who are coming across to England next year, and actually giving them a proper rap and proper representation, and making the top 3 countries plus South Africa and they need to be playing. I mean, Zimbabwe are coming over to England next year. Usually, I don't think I've ever known a country coming to tour England and not getting a Test match at Lord's. Yeah, everybody that comes for one-off, even when Sri Lanka were very new to Test cricket, they came over and had their one Test match at Lord's, because it's just been tradition. Zimbabwe coming over next summer, they're playing their one Test match at Trent Bridge, and think little things like that give these countries a reason to think they are Test countries.
And I just want to let you wrap this up, but I will say this, and to our credit, I know we've mentioned the Ashes fault, but that's not your fault. It's not my fault. Just is the way it is in the cricket fraternity when it comes to Test cricket. And I just want to see, you're right, it's not just on West Indies, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, not just on these other nations like India, Australia, England do need help now. I've been passionate about this, that if you go to South Africa, it should be mandatory you play Zimbabwe. I don't care if you're there for a 2 Test tour, 1 Test tour, you play Zimbabwe. Same with Afghanistan when you go to India, and same with Ireland when you go to England. That should be mandatory. That should be absolutely mandatory to get involved with those nations, because what's the point of giving them Test licenses if you're not going to play them? Now, Ireland just played Pakistan recently, right? Who talked about that? Now, I watched some of that because me and you are traditionalists. We love Test cricket, but I didn't find one person on social media that talked about that series. Not one. And I doubt when I posted that series or that game in the WhatsApp group when I commentated on it, oh, he's doing that, I doubt anyone would have known. That's the most disappointing thing. I think that needs to significantly amount to improve. And I'll leave it at that.
I had a comment from Dinesh Pereira. Hello, Dinesh. Nice to have you watching and listening. Let England come to Sri Lanka, he says, and play spin, and then we can talk. This winter, Aussies are going to thrash them. Well, it's next winter, and Dinesh. And also, Dinesh, who currently holds the Moose Trophy? I'll just leave it at that. Joe Root just basically taunts centuries for fun against the Sri Lankan spinners, and that's all you need to know, Dinesh. But we'll see what happens next time. Anyway, Lucas and Dinesh and everybody out there, thank you very much for tuning in. I may stick out the mental health chat as a separate thing because it was a kind of 20 minutes at the start. We might put that as a separate pod, and then the rest can follow. But thank you for your time, Lucas. Thank you out there, everybody, for watching. And well, stay tuned. There'll be more Cricket Badger podcasts coming, and good to have you with us. We will see you again soon. Cheers all.